How's everybody doing? It's Abby and Paul from the Facebook team for Newcastle Fans TV, and today we're back with another top 5, but with a twist. Today I asked the lads for their worst 5 moments of the season. So interesting one, this one. What have they picked? I did say it was from the end of last season, so that obviously covers all the summer as well. As ever, let me know down below what you think. Are they right? Are we wrong as the ones that we've missed out? Let me know down below, and let's see what the lads said.
So my top 5 worst moments of the season. When I've been thinking about it, there's not been as many bad memories as I can think. I think it's been not too bad. We've had some pretty bad ones, but it's not been too bad. Number 5 for me was Norwich away. I just thought, wow, if we can't beat Norwich, no disrespect Norwich, I thought we're going to be in a lot of trouble indeed, but we've turned it around. But when I heard we were 3-0 down at Norwich, I was actually at work that day, and 3-0 down against Norwich, I was thinking, nah, we are going to struggle this season. But 3-1 in the end, but I was like, nah, we're going down. But that's my number 5. Number 4 is Crystal Palace away. That was absolutely horrendous. Like, that was one of the worst games I've been to this season. Like, we were shocking. I think we test Guaita once by Joe Linton. Palace were really comfortable. I don't think that their fans could have expected an easier afternoon, and it was only 1-0. Lazaro got sent off. There was a lot of criticism about, I think, Bentaleb and players like that, Almiron, St. Maximin. But my biggest memory that day was my player ratings with Owen and 40. Wow, that was a video and a half. That's on the main channel if you haven't watched that already, but I recommend it. It's a good watch. Number 3 was a bit difficult because I know what number 1 is. but number 2 and number 3 were quite close. But my number 3 is the first game of the season against Arsenal. I think that some of the lads might mention the fact that they didn't go and watch the game. Like, I was in the ground, but I've said to the lads after, I wish I wasn't in the ground. It was like proper dull. It was, the weather matched the game. It wasn't the best game and all. We really didn't test Arsenal at all. It was only 1-0, but it was just an awful day. Like, really bad day. It was just kind of like, is this what we're going to have to get used to now? Who knows? But yeah, only 1-0, but it was just flat. If I could describe that game, it was flat. In at number 2, right, now, my number 1 might be a little bit different to the rest of the guys because I wasn't actually at the game for number 1, but I could just remember thinking, we're down. We are down. But my number 2 it was Aston Villa. I thought it was really disappointing. Villa away. Steve Bruce going back to his former club. I've got a couple of Villa mates, and I spent the weekend in Birmingham, and it was just an awful first half. And second half, I think we had one shot maybe. And I just thought, I've spent all weekend for this, and I just thought, nah, it can't be going on. Like, it was more the fact that you go to these away games just for a little bit of hope. And I just thought we just didn't have anything. On the day. But yeah, I would probably say that was tough to say the least. But it is what it is. You know, we lost the game, but we're still above Villa, and Villa might go down. You think that we might stay up, which is a good thing in general. Before my number 1, a notable mention has to be that Rochdale game with Lee. Nearly made my top 5. But my number 1 was Leicester 5, Newcastle 0. Wow. If you ever thought that your team was bad at football, that was the day. I can just remember seeing the scoreline just change every 5 seconds. I thought, hey, where's this come from? And we just got absolutely battered from first minute to last. And you know, I don't know if you've seen the vlogs, but it was just horrible. It was absolutely horrible. I think that was probably the day we thought this is a make or break now for Steve Bruce in Newcastle. If we can't recover from that, but we did beat Man United. If we can't recover, this could be a long season. But fair play to the lads because they really dug out a result the next week, beating Man United for Matty Longstaff, and the rest, as they say, is history. So yeah, I don't think that's going to be one game that Kyle and Leo will look back with any fondness. Kyle always says Leicester's a beautiful place. I'm sure it wasn't that day, to say the least. But no, that is my top 5. So yeah, I don't know whether all the lads will agree, but I would say there's probably about 7 or 8 bad memories, but that's my top 5. But I'll see if all the lads agree with me or not.
So, worst 5 moments of this season so far. Now, with the news that the Premier League's going to get back underway soon. So, in at 5, I'm going to go for the defeat at Aston Villa. Just a horrendous evening of football. I went to that game. I was actually the row behind Kyle. The brother-in-law took me, who's a Villa fan. He was obviously in the home end, I was in the away end. It was just an awful performance. Terrible. If it wasn't for Dubravka that game, it would have been 4 or 5. So how many times could we have said that this season, Dubravka getting us out of trouble? At 4, I'm going to go for Chowdhury's tackle on Matt Ritchie in the Carling Cup, or the Carabao Cup game at St James's. Absolutely disgraceful tackle, and how he never saw red or got a retrospective ban is beyond me. Absolutely disgraceful. Reminded me of Callum McManaman's tackle on Haidara back in the day. It could have been a real career ender. Guys like Matt Ritchie don't go down and stay down like that for no reason. It was an absolute horror tackle, and it still bugs me to this day. It was an absolute disgrace. Number 3, back to the start of the season, that defeat at Norwich. Absolutely horrendous performance again, worse than the one at Aston Villa. Just clueless, and it was just a mess. The whole thing was a mess. We made Norwich look like a team pushing for Europe, not a team that are ultimately going to be back in the Championship next season. Number 2, I've collected a group together, but I'm basically putting it under the failure to adapt, the failure to evolve and change things around when needed. So the period around Christmas and New Year really bugged me because I thought we were horrendous. We had a lot of injuries, but we weren't adapting. We were trying to stick with some horrendous tactics, and when Bruce did change tactics, he went to 3-5-2, which just did not work. It didn't play to the midfield strengths. It really, we didn't see the best of Isaac Hayden. It really stifled him in particular. It was just so ineffective, and it contributed to some really poor results and really poor performances. So that's number 2. Number 1, worst moment of the season, it's that defeat at Leicester. Horrendous, and the quicker I forget about it, the better. What can I say? It was just an absolute horror show from start to finish. Obviously, especially the second half. Yeah, I'd be amazed if the lads didn't put that as number 1, or at least in their top 3. Yeah, I mean, the only good thing to come out of that game was a reaction, and the reaction to that was beating Man United at home 1-0, Matty Longstaff. So, but we weren't to know that. We didn't know what was coming at the time. All we knew was how horrendous that was. So that's my number 1 worst moment of the season.
In at number 5, I'm going to go for... what am I going to go for? I'm probably going to go with... if you're starting this season, I'm probably going to go start with 5 and Rafa Benitez being relieved of his contract. It was the very start of the season, but I'm going to count it anyway. It was very heartbreaking, and then to realise Steve Bruce was going to be appointed from Rafa Benitez is the equivalent to being used to 3-course meals to then be given a ready meal from Tesco. So it wasn't good. It wasn't good at all. So Rafa to leave and then be taken over by Steve Bruce. I mean, I will contest and say that Steve Bruce has done well, and that's a different argument for a different day, no doubt. But Aye, I will definitely say Rafa Benitez being his contract expiring at the start of the season is in at number 5. In at number 4, Boxing Day, Man United 4, Newcastle United 1. It started so well, Matty Longstaff, NE29 with an early goal, and it was all going so well, but Man United hammer 4 goals past Witt and just make it look so ordinary. I mean, Lejeune and Fernandes and Cher that day were absolutely abysmal. But more important, it's like the closest thing that I have to a derby, because my two best mates support Man United, so it's like when we get beat off them, it's like shit. Oh, I've got a couple of weeks of heartache because they won't flipping let us forget it. But I shouted a guy and Jack on that one. But in at number 4, 4-1 Man United. In at number 3, I'm gonna go with Norwich away. Now, for me, this was the worst, one of the worst performances I've ever seen. I mean, at number 1 will probably top this, but the performance, man. I'm so happy I didn't go all the way down to Norwich. I got offered tickets, Lee offered us to go down, but formerly of the channel, Jonathan went down with him instead. And bloody hell, from back to front, we just looked shit. After the week before and what transpired, which we'll be talking about soon, but what transpired of all that, Steve Bruce, we wanted him to have like an identity and start well, and oh god, after this game I honestly thought we were going to get relegated, and it wouldn't have surprised us after watching that we would have ended up sitting at the bottom of the league for the whole season, because Norwich, they played well on the day and Timo Pukki scored a hat-trick, but yeah, nah, they're not that good of a team. They've got a lot of heart though, and I do love Tim Krul, of course, but yeah, a bit of that day was just disgusting. I mean, we got a consolation goal, but the performance all around. There's actually a picture, and Paul, as you're editing this, mate, have a look for it and put it over on screen. But there's a picture of Emil Croft face planted from a mid-air challenge, and that kind of summed up the day. So in at number 3, I'll put Norwich 3, Newcastle United 1. In at number 2, the first day of the season, a very, very miserable day. It was pissing down the rain. The protest went to shit. Over the whole summer it was boycott Arsenal, boycott Arsenal. There'll be no one in that stadium. 48,000. It wasn't that. It wasn't great a day, was it? And I can just remember being so disappointed on the day. Fair play to the other fan channels. They contributed and they took part in the boycott as well as the likes of Tune for Change and all the anti-Ashley groups as well. All got involved, but we just didn't win over the majority that day. And I can say I'm proud in standing up for what I believe in, because I did. The summer shit that we took as a channel was an absolute disgrace, man. All for what? For 48,000 to be crammed in at Arsenal, but that's a different subject for a different day. The protests, I'm sure we'll look back on it and laugh one day if Mike Ashley decides to piss off in a couple of weeks' time. But yeah, that's my number 2. And in at number 1, now on this channel, Leicester, for a short and beautiful time, became known to me as a wonderful place. Now, travelling down to Leicester was, the drive down wasn't great, the weather was shit, I was front row, it was pissing down, the rain's hitting you in the face, you're thinking, right, it's going to be a long one, but hopefully we can grind out a result. 5-0 to Leicester. The goals they're just piping with one, They didn't even lube up. They just went straight in, no bother, job done. See you later. Hammered, gone. The thing is, it was on the wall as well, because Steve Bruce was like, "Oh, we're going to change things up," and he went 4-4-2 away to Leicester, which looking back now seemed suicidal and really stupid thing to do. Given how good Leicester have done in the league this season, go 4-4-2 away and then proceed to play 5 at the back against Brighton. That was the frustration in the early part of the season. Thankfully, Bruce has changed it up to 4-2-3-1. We're having a lot more joy, so that's a good thing. But the 5-0 at Leicester, man, we were absolutely shocking, and it's in the top 10 worst performances I've seen, like under any manager. Never mind just Steve Bruce, but from what became a magical place became a shit place. I mean, still, me and Paul talk a lot. off camera, and Leicester's still an away day I want to go to every year, but that will not live long in the memory, that's for damn sure. So in at number 1 is Leicester 5, Newcastle United 0. But that's my top 5. Get your comments in. What's your top 5 worst moments of the season? And yeah, I'll be reading through them. I'll respond to where I can. And yeah, let us know what you think of mine and the rest of the lads as well. But until next time, I hope you are liking the new stuff on new NFTV Extra. And I'll catch you on the next one. There's loads of ideas coming up for it. So I'll see everyone soon. Bye.
Yep, so at number 5, I went for the management change at the beginning of the season. Obviously, we went from Rafa Benitez, Champions League winner, serial winner everywhere that he's gone, to Steve Bruce, Championship specialist, which at the time was a bitter pill to swallow. It still is now, it still irks now. Yes, Bruce has done a great job really in the circumstances, but it's not the sort of change that a sane man would make. But obviously that man, Jonny, certainly did this. We got Bruce from Sheffield Wednesday, and it was akin to fur coat, then all no knickers. It's like Heinz baked beans going down to Bob's Bastard baked beans. Yeah, it's shopping at Harrods down to, I don't know, Lidl or Aldi. You get my drift. Yes, they're both the same, but there's a huge difference in quality. And the alarm bells were certainly ringing at the beginning of the season as a result of that management change and everything else. At number 4, difficult to put. We have had some good results, we've had some shockers as well, but this is up there. Leicester 5, Newcastle 0, and we were absolutely and utterly fucked for the entire 90 minutes. It was a complete drabbing. It makes it worse because of the situation around Chowdhury, the little coward, Perez as well, after he'd got off a sinking ship, as it seemed at the time. But it was 5-0, it could have been 15-0. It really, really could have. It was men v boys, and it was embarrassing. Not too long ago, these were whipping boys in the Championship, and I know they've gone on and had the investment and won the league and this, that and the other, but to be such a gulfing class was a bit of an embarrassment. So I went with that at number 4. Number 3, I went for another terrible away day, and this one was probably even worse. Norwich 3, Newcastle 1. The hat-trick, that was bad enough. I know John Joe scored one right at the end. Kraft made his debut, and I don't know about Kraft, he should have been called crap. He was awful at the game. Newcastle weren't at the races, and in Norwich you're sitting there as a Newcastle fan looking envious about the way that they played the game and how hungry they were, and the connection between the fans and the club and the owner, the owner and the manager all being united as one, and you're sitting there jealous as hell of Norwich. To me that was, if I said the alarm bells were ringing when Bruce came in, at that point it was something like of Star Trek, Red Alert, surrounded by Klingons, all that sort of kit and caboodle. I was literally babbing my pants at the thought of relegation at this point, certainly. In at number 2, moving away from the results to an event, and that was the Arsenal boycott, or lack of it. Myself, Lee, Kyle, Rob, we gathered at the local bar to be able to watch the match despite the season ticket that we could have used. And to be honest, I was amazed. I was absolutely amazed, because this showed me that social media is not a barometer for public opinion, because all across social media people were going absolutely apeshit. Do not go in that stadium. Boycott, boycott, boycott. The message was loud, clear. They were hoping for virtually an empty house, and nothing could have been further away from the truth. You're looking at the pictures and it looked virtually full. On further examination, there was little empty pockets here and there, but ultimately, to see it like that, it was just like, goodness me. If you wanted to make a visual protest inside that stadium and send a point to the ownership, and Lee Chanley's just sitting there smug as ever. So yeah, I'll put that as my second worst moment of the season. The farcical scenes on the boycott. And at number 1, well, it can only be one thing, can't it? Goodness me, this has gone on longer than Emmerdale, Coronation Street and EastEnders combined. It's by far more annoying, and it's the ongoing takeover, fakeover, will we, won't we, when will it ever end, people at KFC, you know, a side portion of popcorn chicken and gravy. Yeah, it's the takeover or lack of it. This thing has dragged on. It has been the worst part of the entire season. It's like you've got in a lift, you're going up in a skyscraper, and the person who's just walked out of it has already gone and farted. So it stinks. It really is that level of badness, and you're trapped in there and there's nowhere to go, and the lift's just taking you wherever it wants to. So yeah, my worst moment of this season is this entire takeover sham. You know, the circus, whatever you want to call it, takeover, fakeover. It would give the normal average person nosebleeds constantly every day. Things getting said. One journalist says one thing, somebody says the other. The KFC guy says something else. A dentist in the Middle East says something on top of that. Goodness me, when will it ever end? Who knows? But anyway, that's my top 5. Agree or disagree? Let me know down below. Sure you will. Keep it tuned.
I'm not going to do top 5, Paul, sorry. The reason being is because I want to talk about the boycott. Because the boycott is by far a clear, outstanding choice for me. We're going to go to games, and it's like, why are we being attacked? It's what we do as a channel. It's what we do as fans. We love it, right? And then we're seeing other YouTube channels go against their words, saying that they're boycotting all season and all of this. Next thing you know, we see them at away games, they're attending home games, lying to their own fan base. So we were getting stick whilst another channel was getting praised for boycotting, but they weren't boycotting the great games. I felt that was a disgrace, and not many people know that. But I think the whole day and the whole event of boycotting, it was pissing down the rain, it was now like this. There were aiming to be around about 30,000 people to be at the game, and I just felt really let down because it was about 44, 45, it might even be more, I might be wrong on that. And me, Paul and Kyle were furious after the game because we felt this was the one moment, the one chance to show Mike Ashley that in front of the TV cameras, Steve Bruce's first game, Rafa Benitez gone, we'll show the world in front of the TV cameras that we are not happy. And all them people that went, we felt massively let down. I remember the day well, we were ranting and raving in the car park. We just let it all out, the true feelings of it. We felt really let down by the fan base. And ever since then, I've just thought to myself, not again. I'm not boycotting, I'm not protesting ever again, because at the end of the day, it sucked the living hell out of me for 2 months. Frustrated, I felt depleted, I didn't really want to do videos. It was just a horrible time to be a Newcastle fan, it really was. Ranted and we raved, by far for me, that's the worst, Paul, without a shadow of a doubt. I haven't done a top 5 because I wanted to talk a little bit more just on that. You can talk about your tactics, you can talk about the bad signings, you can talk about the takeover, you can talk about the ownership, but the Arsenal one, for me as an individual, by a clear mile, the worst moment of the season, by a clear mile.
I hate this channel. No!